my god, it's so hot. So glad that's over. The heat is insane. I've just realised it was about this time last year that I thought it would be really good to have some information about what was coming with the Sydney Marathon, and I looked online and couldn't find much, and so I thought, hey, you know what? I'm going to put out there the things that I found about the Sydney Marathon when I did it last year. And the last couple of things that I'm going to share with you are the things that I think literally saved my day because it was so hot in 2023. So we flew over from New Zealand. The race was on Saturday. We flew over on the Thursday afternoon to Australia, and New Zealand is 2 hours ahead on the world clock. So what was 7 p.m. for us was 5 p.m. in Sydney time. So going over there, I thought, well, this is going to be good for race morning because it's not going to feel super early when we get up, as long as I still kind of keep in the rhythm for the next 2 days of being over there and getting up nice and early. So that was one of what I thought was going to be a pro about the race, but I'll come to that later on about what actually ended up happening. So flying over was no problems, just normal flight from New Zealand to Australia. And then when we got there, we just used the public transport, so trains and buses pretty much to move around the city. Used the trains to get to our accommodation. And that was fine. The rail system was fantastic. In fact, that was probably one of the best things that made the race day really easy. Now, it's probably important to mention here that before we came over, we had been given a smog warning and told that the heat over there in Sydney was really high at that point in time. So this was September, I think it was around the 17th. Sydney, it looks so beautiful. Smog is not too bad. No wind. Nice light. We got up nice and early so that we can keep the rhythm going for tomorrow. So on the Friday, we then decided to go to check-in. Now, this was really easy. The way that had been organised by the Sydney Marathon is that you just basically caught transport to Redfern train station or Redfern bus station. And then from there was a bus that picked you up, took you to the registration site so you could wander around, get your registration, buy any things that you wanted to do from the merch, and then get back on the bus, and then it took you back to Redfern station. So I thought this was super easy. Such a great idea, especially coming from out of town and in a city that's so big that has lots of transport. We're at race pickup, it's madness in here. People everywhere, but I have my bib number, B12744. Got the registration, no problems at all, got the bus back to Redfern, and then we went and had breakfast. So we decided to have breakfast at a place called Henry Lee's. So you can see here that I shared, well, I think we shared, I might have eaten it myself, I can't remember. We had a chocolate croissant, and then we went in for just a normal breakfast, just some eggs and toast, just nice and plain, nothing that was going to upset my stomach. So that was around 11:30 Sydney time, so around 1:30 with New Zealand time. So pretty normal kind of lunchtime really for us. And then the rest of the day was just going to be about relaxing, eating some food and trying not to be too nervous. Woke up race morning, nice and early, and on race day, Sydney had decided to allow the public transport to be free, which was fantastic. So it wasn't just free for me with my race bib, but my partner's race, like entering the train stations and things, were also free. So we just got to move around on public transport without any worries. So I went down and caught the train. I was really worried that the trains were going to be just absolutely packed with people and that we wouldn't be able to get on them, but this was not the case. There was tons of room, tons of seats for everybody, just a really good vibe, absolutely no problems. So got on the train, caught the train over to the start of the race, which was North Sydney, and we arrived there just around just before 6, I think. And it was a really short walk from the train basically to the start line. And well, we've successfully navigated the rail system and we've made it to the race start line. Check this out. Far out. Pretty amazing. Sydney turning on a beautiful morning. Oh, and if that isn't good enough, what about this one? Harbour Bridge, right there. I've put sunblock on actually, and see, it's all white. Apparently it's going to fade away, but it hasn't at this moment. So at this point you can see that I'm pretty happy with the view, the excitement of doing a marathon in such a cool place. So from where we were standing, you could see the Sydney Opera House and you could see the Sydney Harbour Bridge, which we were about to run over. And I just thought this was fantastic. So just taking in the views. And then shortly after this, we had about an hour to go until the race started. I think it started officially at 7:10. But you had basically until like 7:50 to cross the start line. So no panic to get over the start line. I was in wave B and we were told you picked your wave based on what you thought your goal time would be. And I picked quite a realistic time and seating for myself. And we were told that we would just gather in an area and then your wave would go off together. So at around 6:10, I went and got into the line for the toilet. And this is where the day started to get a little bit more tricky. So I think it took almost an hour to get through the toilet queue. There's lots of talk online about this and how long it took, and this is something that we did end up making a complaint about because obviously Sydney's going to be one of the world majors, and we found this not ideal, really. So by the time all that was done, I didn't really have time for a warm-up. I wasn't allowed into the starting pen, even though I was there well before the start time. So I basically had to go to the back of the line behind the tail end Charlie and just start off at the back with many other people. It wasn't just me in this scenario.
Let's go, Sydney! Let's go, Sydney! Make some noise! Make some noise! We'll see you at the finish line. We'll be waiting for you. Yeah, there we go.
So basically you start, head up a little bit, turn, and then you're pretty much on the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Unbelievable. I mean, what an amazing thing to be able to do. This was by far one of the highlights of the day, even though the day had only just started. Now, by this point, my Garmin had picked up that the temperature was around 22 degrees, and this was around 7:30, 7:40 in the morning. So you can already see that there's beads of sweat on my head and face. And my plan at this stage, so this is probably one of my best tips for this, my plan at this stage was to run about 10 seconds per kilometre slower than my goal pace for the first 10k, and I honestly think that this was one of the things that saved my day. So I'm not a particularly fast runner. My goal was to try and run around 6:05 to 6:10ish, so I decided I'd start off around 6:10 to 6:20. And then after the first 10k, just lift that up to that slightly faster pace and try and hold that till about 30, 35, and then for the last 10k or so, if I can, give it a little bit more effort. 3k in, I've just managed to catch the 5-hour pacing group. Started so far back, we weren't allowed into the chute. So, bad planning on my behalf, but now I get to play the game of chasing the pace groups down. And I'm just trying to run around 6:10 to 6:20 per k, the first 10k. This was not to be the case of what happened because the heat was absolutely insane. Come to that more in a little bit, but this was how I started off. So 6:10 to 6:20 pace, and just trying to catch up all the groups that I'd started behind. So you can see here just passing some of the pacing groups as well. The support on the course, the entertainment was amazing. Just something I've never experienced before. I've done a lot of races. I've done a lot of triathlon, Ironman racing, 70.3 racing, and this was just unbelievable. Just the whole way along, the vibe was great. There was always something going on. So this is running through the city. The only flat bit was kind of running around the quays, and then we headed up into the city and out towards Centennial Park.
You got it, buddy. Natalie, looking good out there.
Now at this stage, you can see here that the lead man is starting to come back. So he's already done his laps of Centennial Park and he's on his way back. I think I was around 17k at this point, and the heat was really starting to get up. So this would have been somewhere around, probably around 9:15, something like that. And the temperature, you could start to feel the heat was rising. Now, because of the heat wave and the smog, Sydney had the Sydney Marathon had decided they would put on some extra aid stations for water. But unfortunately, some of these ran out of water as we were on our way round, which made it really, really hard. So anyway, this is me heading up along by Anzac Parade and heading up towards Centennial Park. And it was about this point that I really, from here on, I couldn't really record much. It was more just thinking about putting one foot in front of the other, not slowing down, and trying to grab as much hydration as I could, really.
This is the lead man coming through 204 at the moment. I'm at about 17k. There he is.
204. I'm about 24 minutes behind that.
Alright, but it's only when you went over the line, so it doesn't matter.
Somewhere around probably the 30k mark, I think there was an aid station which didn't have any water left on it, and we were told just to kind of keep moving on to the next one. And somewhere between here and the next aid station, so by then I think they were every, say, 2.5 to 3k, so it had basically been about 6 kilometres without water. And again, seeing on Garmin, the average temperature was 29 and it got to a high of 34. It was really hard. But the thing that really saved my day was someone had passed me a couple of blocks of ice. And I just thought, right, I just need to use these to cool down my core temperature. So I had one in my hand, or both of them in my hands, but one of them I held under my armpit, so really close to my body, and the other one I just held in my hand and tried to like rub it over my face or onto my shoulders. And I honestly think that might have been one of the things that saved my day. That and my very serious pacing strategy from the start. So this is me here at the finish line, being very grateful to have finished. I was just putting up my results. So yeah, as I said, not a particularly fast runner, but very steady. So the first half I did in 2 hours 12:24, and the second half was 2 hours 14:29. I went from 1,717th down to 945th, and overall I went from 8,815th position down to 4,764th. So just by being consistent, not starting out too hard, and just really using that ice and the water as much as I could. So my first kilometre was my first 5k was an average of 6:12 pace. And my last 5k was an average of 6:19 pace, so very little change in that. Yeah, so that was my day at the Sydney Marathon. So the things that really helped me, as I said, was a very even pacing strategy, just using lots and lots of water, and using the ice cubes and the ice blocks that I was given from the heat.
Oh my god, it's so hot. So glad that's over. The heat is insane, but very happy with myself. Missed a couple of the goals, but got to the end and didn't cry, so good day.
So the start time is now 6 o'clock, where last year I think it was 7:10, and you need to be over the start line by 6:56, and last time it was 7:55. So it's a whole hour earlier, which I think will really help, because the longer you're out there, the more of the heat you end up having to suffer, the slower you're running, and the more it makes you slow down. So that's a really good thing. So good on you, Sydney Marathon, for changing that. So yeah, apart from that, I can't really fault the race. I thought it was an amazing day. Good luck to everyone that's doing it. It should be really fun. Just enjoy every moment. Use those aid stations. Remember as well, the aid stations are really long, so you don't need to try and get in right at the start where they start. They go on for quite a way. So, you know, take a few more steps and get yourself in a little bit further down. They do have some gels on some of the aid stations, so grab a couple there and top up. And remember, grab your cup, squeeze your cup, make a little V shape out of it just to try and get the water in. One other thing that I would have done in hindsight is I did run with the CamelBak, but I was only using it for gels, not for fluid. And if I'd known that there was going to be a bit of an issue with getting enough water, I probably would have used a soft flask. So if you're thinking you'll be out there for a slightly longer time, kind of that 4-hour plus mark, and you're happy running with a CamelBak on, I would, or some kind of hydration vest, I would definitely recommend using a soft flask or something similar just to stay hydrated, because that will really make the day hard if you get too hot. So yeah, good luck. Gonna get a fucking burger and a Coke and that's gonna go crazy.